Somebody on Front Street pulled out a gun and killed her brother over the election. One of the sounds that I can close my eyes and still hear was the sound of my mother's crystal sherbet. Father Hodak, he said that Hinsdale was the typical mid-18th century Victorian, oh, he said it so well. You just saw this picture of the women in the hats all the way down the social list. And it was very much that way when I grew up.
And was your grandmother county superintendent after she was married?
No, she was elected before she was married. She was the first woman and the second superintendent of schools, but she was married before she finished the term. And there was a lot of political between Malta and Glasgow and Wolf Point at the time. And Malta and Phillips County wasn't formed until 1915, which was much later. But, well, when they had the jailbreak, the sheriff was in Malta. Didn't get back for some of the activities, like the hanging. But the competition between the voters in those three places. Roosevelt County was out before Phillips was. But there was, the politics were fabulous. Couldn't believe some of the things they pulled. In fact, the woman who defeated Lear, what was her last name? She was running for county superintendent of schools, and she was from Malta, but her brother was in Glasgow. And during a political argument shortly before the election, somebody on Front Street pulled out a gun and killed her brother over the election.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess people just took things into their own hands back then, huh? That's
Well,
crazy.
I don't know why they had to. They had a sheriff and undersheriffs and jail and courthouse, the whole thing.
So we talked about Girl Scouts and 4-H. Did we talk about Women's Club?
Women's Club was a very, very important organization in the whole picture of things. They were the ones who got things done.
So who was in the Women's Club?
Everybody was in the Women's Club. But I have a picture of it that you knew when this woman's daughter got married in town and joined the Women's Club, this whole group of people, you knew which ones 20 years from now would be the officers of the women's clubs. There was nothing, the social caste was purely the 1880s.
And so what was the levels in the social caste of Hinsdale? And I'm assuming this is in the 1930s?
Well, it started long before that. I think possibly education was a very, very high thing. Anybody who was educated. And money was always a thing. Your biggest ranchers' wives could get away with a lot more than the smaller ranchers' wife. Your business people were all, you really didn't have, I'm thinking of the word professional. I think you could say that educated women, your teachers actually, were on a level with a professional, as in we had one doctor in town.
And so that your education could raise you equal to money?
I'm wondering if it wasn't maybe a blending of the two. Your more educated, your professional men would have married your more educated women
So where were the meetings held?
in the individual homes.
Always in town or sometimes in the country?
Well, I'm thinking when you say country,
I'm thinking of ranchers' wives,
okay, you've got the blacks and the whites.
and they had townhouses.
They had houses in towns.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those houses in town were well furnished.
So when you went to a women's club meeting, you dressed up
Oh, always.
in your hat and gloves.
Very true. Hat, gloves. No, I honestly don't. I don't remember this would be later 30s and through the 40s, that the hats were a requirement. I would say they probably were some that turned up. More to the luncheons were very, very exactly set. If you were in a position to, you would hire one of the women who was not quite up on this to come in and work in your kitchen to make sure the food got on right.
And so what would a typical luncheon be?
Oh, there was only one as far as I was concerned. Agnes calls it Aunt Polly's. I call it Women's Club dessert. And it's just a pile and pile on top of vanilla wafers, not graham crackers. And a lemon, pure lemon juice, not artificial lemon flavoring. And whipped cream.
Whipped cream or baked meringue?
Whipped cream. Now, you didn't bake this. One of the sounds that I can close my eyes and still hear was the sound of my mother's crystal sherbet. She would dish this into the sherbet dishes and then set them in the freezer to keep them cool. Took one out and one fell. I was standing in the back alley. I'm standing on my bicycle in the back alley, and I heard that, and I knew immediately what it was. And never have I forgotten the way that piece of crystal sounded when it hit the floor. That was a tragedy. But that was the dessert, and because she made it for the women's club, and I'm thinking it had cream cheese in it. I know it had egg yolk in it. But we only got it once a year, and she made enough for the family too. And that was, so we always look forward to a women's club meeting because we got some of that.
And did you have to do special house cleaning for that?
I mean, that's where the top of the door test comes in.
We talked about that with you, Brady, yeah. I can't imagine going in someone's house and doing that. That's why I had to bring it up, because it was just a different life.
Well, I mean, here you have, I think, I remember one of my contemporaries saying once about, it actually was a in-law of hers, that she was invited to play bridge with the has-its, the has-bes and the want-a-bes. And the relative was only a want-a-be. But the idea of being invited to play bridge with the has-bes was just more than she could really deal with. So you have the has-bes who are really looking for things to keep the want-a-bes in their place, and having dust on the top of the door sill would have been all the ammunition you'd need. And I remember a couple of women who were very, very much that way.
So the women's club must have changed quite a bit, because the women's club is the one that wrote they thought the land was free, isn't it?
Right.
And I'm assuming it wasn't quite so casty at that point, or was it still?
Well, you know, how did Father Hodak put it? He came into Hinsdale, looked around. He was a sociologist. He had spent a lot of time in the southern islands.
Southwest?
No, the clear down in the Cuba, the
In the
Puerto
Caribbean.
Rico, the Caribbean there. But he came in, and if I can put this right, sort of chuckled because in the 1960s, 70s, must have been here 70s at least, he said that Hinsdale was the typical mid-18th century Victorian, he said it so well. You just saw this picture of the women in the hats all the way down the social list. And it was very much that way when I grew up. It changed when I came back into being more of a study thing. There's a program over on there that I just found. They would make out the program every year. Every meeting had a program and one person was in charge of it. Eleanor Western usually did a music program. My mother did a book review, but just all different. There were political programs and social programs. And it was just, it just seemed like a more worthwhile. You could go to a meeting and come out of it feeling that you had either put something into it or you had got something out of it.
I'm thinking that the history book was a very nice group effort to do that.
It's amazing how much they put into that little book.
Oh, when you see what's in there and what you can get out of it, even now going back in.